Hi there, it's Jo Zuleika, founder of Women Who Lead with Heart, coming on for my Sunday afternoon live, where I give free trainings on special topics in leadership for women. And today's topic is all about establishing healthy boundaries. If you are joining me, give me a hello, say hi, or hashtag replay. I'm really excited to bring this topic to you today because I think so many of us who identify as strong and sensitive female leaders, that's what my group's all about, sometimes run into difficulty holding a hard line or establishing firm boundaries or keeping a healthy line between our yes and our no. Is that you? Do you have difficulty with saying no? Do you tend to take on more than you absolutely should or actually want to? And maybe don't even know why? Do you find that you um, have difficulty delegating or saying no to work projects? Do you find that other people seem to have their work lives more in control than you do? You might find yourself working overtime or working through lunch or taking on lots of things because you just think you need to. There's some sort of compulsion to work or to do or to perform, to put forth an effort for whatever reason. This is for you. This is all about establishing healthy boundaries. So, I want to start with first of all, let's just recognize that we are physical beings that have natural boundaries. Boundaries exist in our lives, in our world, in our physical world for a darn good reason. We have limited resources. We have limited energy. We have limits on what's healthy that's established in many ways and shown in our physical world. So let me just give you some examples. Just things like that, day gives way to night, and that when we're exhausted, we need to sleep. And when we're hungry, we need to eat. And when we're thirsty, we need to drink. And when we're comfortable, we're not hot or too cold. That we are emotional beings in a physical body that has natural boundaries. We have to respect those basic needs, otherwise, we feel awful. So, just first on the continuum of realizing that over giving sort of is a transgression on something that is normal and natural to have, might be helpful for you to be aware of. Like if you disregard one of these normal boundaries, like you pull an all-nighter for a project, you're going to feel crappy the next day. You're going to feel exhausted. Or if you overeat or overdrink, you feel hungover the next day. If you're too cold or you're too hot, you can't even think or function very well. So you recognize that you do have these physical needs, right? Your basic physiological, scientifically quantified needs. And so you respect them for the most part. But I want to say that you also have emotional and social and personal needs as well that have a boundary. That when we don't respect the balance point for our social being, for our emotional being, for our personal well being, then we have an equivalent of sort of like a relationship hangover between us and work, or us and our yes, and our us and our no. Like this, we're all different, right? Introverts have a boundary, a need to be alone, to recharge. And artists have a need to have a creative outlet for them to have expression. And people who are runners or surfers need to go get their fix of endorphins and a runner's high, or to be communing with the sea. Or fur parents need time with their pet to feel sorted out and like they're in balance with what they need. And that's what I'm saying that we have here as well. When it comes to work, when it comes to having a healthy boundary between our yes and our no, to our to our desires to say yes when we really mean no, we want to respect the same type of boundaries that needs display in other areas of our life. Does that make sense? All right, so why don't we take it just a little bit further? So you should have better boundaries, but you might be wondering, well, how? How do I establish them? And I want to just call out first, let's just look at why you might overgive, why you might allow somebody to, over delegate to you, or why you say yes to a project when you really don't have the time, why you would say yes to a social obligation that you really don't want to go to. It's helpful for us to understand why we do these things before we figure out how to stop doing them. So I want you to just ask yourself, if you find yourself overly being amenable, overly agreeable, always saying yes, reflexively agreeing up to invitations or requests without really thinking them through, why do you do that? Do you know? Is it because you care a lot what other people think and you think that if you say no that you're rejecting them? Is it because you worry what other people will say, that if you don't always go along to get along, that you might receive criticism, that you might seem like you're not an easygoing person? Is it something that is part of your identity, like the facade that you keep going? That something that you want everyone to believe about you, that you're easygoing and positive and making things easier on other people and wanting to please? If those are the case, then saying no might make you feel like you're being selfish, or you might feel guilty, or you might worry how it comes across. And that might lead you into making more meaning of something that you don't want to do in saying so than there really needs to be there. Meaning, if somebody asks you to do something that you really don't want to do, you might be feeling overly guilty and feeling weird peer pressure about saying yes that really doesn't need to be there. It can just simply be a no, but you're just not comfortable or confident enough to hold that space to respect your boundary. All right, so I want to just now give us some tactical tips. If you find yourself having difficulty holding a healthy boundary, one of the things that I like to say is just have an out already prepared. So notice when it's likely for you to sort of get ambushed with an invitation or a request or being delegated to or in some way work getting dumped on you. And be ready for that with a response that helps build some space for you to be able to make a good decision and not reflexively just agree to it. So I remember learning this a long time ago when I was facilitating large groups doing public speaking events. And often after the event was done, people would come up to talk to me. And sometimes it would be quite overwhelming because I would have just given a lot of energy and really been trying to connect with this large audience. And I may be really thirsty and hungry and just needing to retreat and regroup and have some private time for myself. And then all of a sudden I'm surrounded by 20 people that all want to like talk to me or make connections with me or go a little bit deeper, or which is flattering and wonderful and also a little bit overwhelming. And those would often be invitations like, hey, would you like to go grab a drink later? Or what room are you staying in? Could I, have you sign my copy of your book? Or just sort of feeling like it was coming at me and like overstepping what I felt comfortable fielding. And they were all well intentioned. So how do I say no? How do I say no? I'm not going to tell you where I'm staying. No, I don't want to go out with you right now. No, I don't want to, arrange a time to talk further. I would feel like I've already done my thing. But as a helpful teacher, it was difficult for me to find my no in that moment. Does that make sense? So I I got a pro tip from another facilitator that says you have to have an out. You have to say, I have a policy. That was what she taught me. I have a policy that I never accept invitations immediately after I do a facilitated training such as this, because I know from experience I need time to regroup. But if you give me your card, I'll be happy to email you and we could talk about something in the future. Something like that. Like having a poised and polished out already at the ready is such a pro tip. And you can do this with bosses and with friends, with anybody who brings a request to you. You can say, I understand clearly that you want me to take on this project, boss, and I want to say yes, but let me check what I've got going on and can I get back to you? A way that you can stall appropriately and professionally that absolutely makes sense for you. You know, a busy person who's quite effective doesn't necessarily have a wide open calendar like, sure, I can do that. I can do anything, no matter what. You can just bring that to me. That doesn't really add up to somebody who's, a professional that manages their time well. So finding an out that works well when somebody ambushes you with a work request could look like that. And then also, especially, is how do you have an out when you get a social request? You might have a story that you tell yourself that if you don't agree, then your friends or your social circle will feel hurt or rejected or miffed, that you're not immediately saying, absolutely, I'm in, I'll go. But I want to challenge you to be that person that honors her own boundaries and her own time so well that she can find her spaciousness in saying, I want to say yes, but I really want to be careful I don't overextend myself. So I'm going to take some time just to look at my overall calendar and then I'll get back to you. That might give a people pleaser the shivers and quivers to think about actually pumping the brakes before saying an absolute reflexive yes, to reciprocate an invitation with an automatic, of course. But it is the new habit that you can establish that respects yourself, that respects your time, that shows emotional maturity, and that you're governing yourself, and that you're respecting some basic needs. All right. So this is a quick one for you tonight, but I wonder, how does this land with you? Can you evaluate why you don't have healthy boundaries or why you say yes when you really would rather say no? If you can name it, then you can start addressing it. I look forward to hearing what your comments are in the chat below. And if you want help with real leadership skills, not just short-term hacks for how to respond to pressures in the moment, if you want to understand how to handle being delegated to, how to manage your boss, how to manage others, how to say no when you mean no and say yes only when you mean yes, then maybe it's time for some leadership coaching. And ladies, that's my jam. If you're interested in joining my upcoming workshop, Create More Confidence, it can give you the confidence to be able to hold a powerful no and respect your boundaries and hold them, then check out the comments below for an invitation. It's a free workshop that's going to be held at the end of this month, and I look forward to seeing you there. That's it for now. Go well.